Hey everyone, it's Allie, and today I want to talk about the strategy that I'm going to be personally doing at the start of 3.25 to make my initial currency. This is going to be a strategy I've done many times in the past, and every single time I've done it, it's just always proven itself as a very solid strategy, giving you quite a lot of raw currency and not many items that you have to go off and sell to people. This is going to be a strategy that's going to revolve around Expedition, Harvest, and Eldritch altars, with the ability for us to add in strongboxes and shrines or harbingers or any sort of other tertiary mechanic you might like on top of it, as we're going to have quite a lot of additional points left over. This is going to be a strategy that's going to feel really nice on League launch, because all of the loot that you're going to get here, as I mentioned, is just nothing but raw currency. A lot of our total profit is going to come from the Tujen Expedition vendor, which just literally gives you nothing but raw currency, which would make your early progression substantially better, given you'll have lots of fusings, jewelers, chromes to use for yourself on your gear. And because this is going to be high value currency that people want, for example, people are going to really want Scours and Alks at the start of a season, you'll be able to off-sell them on the auction house very quickly and efficiently, giving you quite a lot of additional profit on top of everything you'll be making. It's not like that's going to be the only currency you'll get here, as Tujen loves to give you lots of raw chaos orbs and lots of divines every now and then, meaning that the raw currency is going to always be there and be very plentiful. The other mechanic we're going to be adding here, Harvest, is going to be something that is highly sought after, especially in the first week of the season, as Harvest Juice and the Harvest Crafting Bench is one of the best ways to make early game gear for most builds. Not only that, but because we're going to be doing Eldritch altars, we're going to get a lot of Eldritch currency and a lot of other raw currency on top of that, which is again things that people want in mass at the start of a season. This strategy should feel very comfortable to do, and given that the mapping for this is going to be very simple, it should be a very fun and simple strategy that makes you lots of consistent profit with not too many spikes or dips in your profit per hour. With that out of the way, let's discuss what the Atlas tree would look like for this. There's going to be two Atlas trees linked in the description below. One is going to be a fully fleshed out Atlas that's going to have all of your passive points put in, and the other one is going to be a Leaguestart Atlas, which is what I would expect your pathing to look like at the start of a season when you're progressing through your white, yellow, and red maps. To begin the starting tree, you're simply going to want to come down the middle and immediately rush the Kirak wheel at the top. This is going to give you a lot of additional Kirak mission chance, which is very important for you to be able to progress your Atlas very quickly at the beginning of a season, with us going over to the left to get ourselves Player Tactician and Shaping the Skies to just make our progression even faster, and then afterwards coming over to the right to get Shaping the Mountain. With all three of the map sustain nodes together plus Player Tactician, your progression should be substantially faster, allowing you to get to tier 16 maps relatively quickly. Once you have all that, we'll be somewhere around the beginning of yellow maps, and it'll be time for us to start turning our tree into one that's going to make us some passive income. We're going to first go and pick up Expedition as our first mechanic, as I mentioned earlier, Harvest Juice does not really sell on day one, meaning that we're just going to want to do Expedition for the raw currency that Tujen's going to provide us. We'll start this off by getting ourselves Hunt for Answer for a lot of Expedition chance, and then we'll go over to the big wheel on the right to pick up ourselves Extreme Archaeology. This is what's going to make Expedition actually fun, as it's going to remove most of the reading required and most of the preparation and timing. It's simply going to turn Expedition into a mechanic where you just walk into the Expedition, put down the explosion in the middle, hit boom, and then just kill everything on the screen and move on to the next map. Once we get everything in this wheel, we'll come over to the top right and pick up ourselves Noble Quest and Scratching Up the Ground, as it's going to give us a lot of Tujen and Danny chance, which are going to be where the majority of the currency is going to come from. If you're an experienced crafter and you know how to do raw crafting, Rather Not is also a great option, but if you do not know how to do crafting, then you can just simply skip this. But I would highly recommend that if you do know how to do raw crafting, you should pick up Rather Not for day 1 and day 2, as the gear you're going to be able to craft with raw is going to be substantially more money than, for example, what Danning would give you. Finally, we'll go over to Buried Knowledge, and this is where we're going to get our remaining little bit of an expedition chance to make sure we get an expedition every single map. This should give you quite a lot of passive currency, especially Tujen currency, as you're progressing through your Atlas, meaning that you'll be able to go to a Tujen vendor every now and then and get yourself some currency that you might need to craft your gear, or just bulk up on a few chaos orbs to upgrade your build. From here, we're then going to go and pick up all the harvest nodes. We're going to first start off by getting Call of the Grove to actually see some harvest in our map, followed by Bountiful Harvest and Bumper Crop to get more currency out of them, Doubling Season to get some duplication chance, followed by coming over to the right side and getting either Primal Drought, Vivid Drought, or Wild Drought based on the current market prices. This is going to be something you're going to want to go to the auction house for and see what the current prices of each of the harvest juices are going to be, and simply just pick whichever one is the cheapest. Typically, that is going to be the blue juice, but sometimes the yellow juice can be a little bit cheaper, meaning you might want to potentially swap this over. Finally, we'll come over to Heart of the Grove and get ourselves this to finish up our harvest nodes, and then from here you should be somewhere around middle of red tier maps, which would allow us to take the Eldritch Gateway and come over to the left and pick up ourselves Exarch altars. I would highly recommend for you to start this strategy with Exarch altars, as it's going to give you substantially more raw currency than Eater altars will, which is worth a lot more at the beginning of a season. After day 2 or 3, we are going to want to swap over to Eater altars, where we'll just pick up the Eater wheel here along with Shadow of Hunger, which we'll get into further into the video, as the increased quantity and pack size that we can get from this will actually multiply the total loot that we get from both Harvest and Expedition. Next, let's talk about the Scarabs that you'd want to potentially include in the strategy. Scarabs are not going to be required, but I would highly recommend for you to start adding them in as you start making a little bit of profit, as they'll only increase your profitability even further. I don't expect you to use any of these Scarabs until tier 16, and I highly recommend you to not, as they're most likely just going to be wasted on inefficient maps where you're most likely not going to be getting the full value of the Scarabs themselves. First off, we're going to have the Scarab of Monstrous Lineage and Scarab of Hordes, as these are going to both be very good multipliers to total money you're going to make from everything here. Magic pack size is great, as it's going to affect the altar packs, the exhibition packs, and the harvest packs, giving you overall more loot in general, while Scarab of Hordes is going to be specifically for the Eldritch packs, but when combined with Monstrous Lineage, it'll give you some pretty silly blue packs that are going to give you quite a lot of currency. Both of these Scarabs should be dirt cheap on launch, with them probably being around 1 chaos at most, and then with them very quickly dropping sub 1 chaos, and because of that, they just give you way too much average currency per map to not include them for how cheap they're going to be. For Expedition, we're going to have both the Expedition Scarab of Rune Finding and Verisium Powder, as they're both going to be very strong Scarabs, giving you substantially more profit. I would highly recommend to run double Rune Finding as soon as you feel comfortable with it, as the additional runic monsters are going to be where you're going to get most of your logbooks from. It's going to be where a lot of your profitability is going to come outside of Tujen. The Verisium Powder Scarab could be something that you could choose to skip if your build has a lot of bad remnant mods that can very easily brick it. This is going to make it so you can very easily hit every single monster within the expedition with your big explosion. It's going to just multiply rune finding to make your strategy even better. But the only downside here being that because we're playing the big explosion, you could potentially find yourself a lot of situations where it's not easy to place your explosion in a way that does not hit any of the bad modifiers that might brick your build. Finally, for harvest, we're going to have the Harvest Scarab doubling, which is just simply going to be something you're going to have to look into for yourself to know if it's going to be worth running or not. If you have a build that's already pretty slow at killing the harvest, I would not recommend to make them take twice as long, as you'll probably just end up making more money per hour not spending the additional time in here, even if you get double the harvest juice. And if you aren't making enough harvest juice by default per map that you're doing, the price of the Scarab might outweigh the amount of currency that you're going to get from it. For example, if you're getting on average 10 chaos worth of harvest juice per map that you do, this would double it to 20 chaos, and well, if the Scarab itself is worth 10 chaos, you'd be breaking even, basically making you lose a Scarab slot for nothing. If this is worth somewhere around 10 chaos and you're getting 40 chaos worth of juice per map, that would then boost it up to 80 chaos, meaning that the Scarab would give you 30 chaos of profit per map, at which point it'd be highly worth including. Next, let's talk about how we're going to be setting up our maps. First off, you're going to want to make sure you're going to be chiseling and alching your maps, as both quantity and pack size are going to greatly increase the amount of profits you're going to get here. Quantity is going to increase the amount of harvest juice and expedition currency you find, along with an additional chance for logbooks, while pack size is going to give you a 1% chance per pack size to duplicate any given monster from these mechanics. That means if I had 100% pack size, all monsters in my expeditions and in my harvest would just be doubled, giving me effectively double the total currency from that map. Because of this, you should ideally try to roll your maps for around 70% quality. This shouldn't be very difficult to do, and it should take you at most 1 to 2 rerolls per map, and it'll be highly worth it in comparison to the cost of the reroll currency, given you're going to get a lot of scours and a lot of alchemies for free from Tujen anyways, to where rerolling your maps is simply just going to be an exercise of spending a little bit of time to prepare everything. Finally, for the map device, what I would personally recommend to do is to either take Domination or Ambush based on what you decide to pick on your atlas. You'd also simply choose to just not take a map option and just simply leave the default increased quantity of items found in an area, as that will also just give you more currency, and it'd be just fine, as you'll also save on spending chaos per map that you run. As for the maps that you're going to want to run for the strategy, to begin with, obviously you're just going to be running maps as you're progressing through your atlas, but as soon as you get to tier 16 maps and you get yourself your 2 watch zones, you should go and try to get yourself as many favorite map slots as you can by doing things such as a Elder Guardian, a Shaper Guardian, a Conqueror, and so on and so forth, and then to favor everything into Jungle Valley. Jungle Valley is going to be a tier 8 map by default, which with 2 watch zones is going to be boosted up to tier 16. You can also eventually choose to do Mausoleum once you get enough watch zones to make Mausoleum a tier 16 map, as both of the maps are going to be effectively the same. The reason we want to run these 2 specific maps over everything else is simply just due to how Eldritch altars spawn. In these 2 maps, the bosses technically do not exist. They are both in a dormant state and they cannot be immediately attacked, making them effectively not appear on the map, which tricks the Eldritch altars into thinking that there is no boss. Because of that means that it's going to cull all of the boss-related altars from your pool of altar choices that's going to give you, which is going to be amazing, as we only specifically want all all the things related to monsters. And specifically, this is going to allow you to see more altars that specifically say increase quantity and pack size. Quantity and pack size is going to be very crucial in this strategy. And eventually, as I mentioned in the tree section of this, we are going to want to swap over to Eater of World altars to specifically benefit from this even more. While Exarch altars give you quite a lot of currency, Eater altars typically give you a lot of things that either duplicate the currency that you see or just give you raw currency and pack size. Currency and pack size altar mod is substantially more common on Eater World altars. So once you have yourself quite a little bit of money and you are pretty deep into tier 16 maps, you would want to respec your altars over to Eater World altars to specifically benefit from this. The way you're going to be running these maps is going to be very simple. You're simply going to walk through the whole map and clear everything in the map without you bothering the boss. These bosses are not going to be worth touching outside of you going and killing it on your 24th map to get yourself your boss invitation to sell to other people. Outside of that, you're simply just going to click on all the altars, trying to prioritize the quantity and pack size altars over everything else. If you obviously see an altar that's going to give you either some sort of rare scarab that's worth a lot of money or grand currency, that would take precedence, but otherwise quantity and pack size should be priority number one over everything else. Once you do get all these altars, you're then going to want to go do your expedition, your harvest. You're going to want to skip them until you try and pick up all the altars in the map, because this increased quantity and pack size is going to specifically work with your expedition, your harvest, multiplying the total loot that you're going to get from them. This might be a little bit annoying to do on Jungle Valley given how long it is, which is why I personally enjoy Mausoleum a little bit more once Mausoleum is the tier 16 map, because the layout of it is a lot simpler to run and you kind of just backtrack all the way to the beginning of the map anyways if you just run the map in a giant figure 8. In terms of how you're going to be doing harvest, all you're going to simply be doing when you go into the harvest is going to each set of plots, and you're simply going to be looking at the colors of the monster names, and you're going to be picking the one that has the most monsters in blue text. There's going to be monsters in gray text, white text, and blue text, and that is going to signify the different tiers of monsters, and the higher the tier, the more harvest currency it's going to give you. If they have the same amount of light blue text monsters, simply just pick whichever color is currently worth the most amount of money. As for the expedition, it's going to be just as simple as well. You're going to walk up to the expedition, and you're going to place down your only one explosion. You'll be able to see the explosion radius of it as you're hovering around with it, and you're just going to try to do your best to hit as many remnants as possible. You might want to take a very quick look around your expedition to see if you see anything that says increased amount of logbooks, and you're going to try to hit all those if possible. One thing you can do, especially if you're running the Scarab of Verisium powder, is to simply just put it down, as it's most likely going to hit the whole expedition anyways, and then simply hover over the icon by your skills in the bottom right of your screen, and it will show you exactly everything you're going to hit. This is going to make it very convenient for you to know if there's something that is going to break your build or not. For example, if you're playing a lightning build and in yellow text it says enemies are immune to lightning damage, you might want to very quickly go see where that remnant is and do everything you can to avoid it. Sometimes these remnants are going to spawn right in the middle of the expedition and there's just going to be nothing you can do about not hitting it. But honestly, in my opinion, that doesn't happen too often, and even if you edge an explosion onto the side of an expedition, it'll still be worth quite a lot of currency. Now, as for the loot that you're going to get from this, it's going to be very simple. You're going to get a lot of harvest currency, which just immediately sell on the auction house for profit. As for expedition, you're mostly going to be getting yourself the reroll currency for each of the expedition shops, as well as a few logbooks. These logbooks are going to be very easy to sell. You're simply just going to get yourself Awaken Trade, and then you're just going to simply Control D on the logbook, and then you're going to look at the 3 tabs for the 3 different variations of the logbook and see which one is the most expensive one. In this case, Black Scythe is about 40-50 chaos, and because the only other one on here is Broken Circle, I would put out this logbook for whatever the price of Black Scythe is. As for the reroll currency, I would highly recommend to just sell all of your scrap metal and your Ashtagali, especially if you do not plan to do any sort of raw crafting. And then with your burial medallions, I would recommend to come over to Danny's shop and reroll with them a little bit, as you will get a little bit of Danny currency while you do this, allowing you to potentially buy some logbooks and some other reroll currency from him. You're going to have to look at the price of the burial medallions and see if they're worth a lot of money or if they're not worth too much, but using them to be able to get yourself additional exotic coinage, or sometimes potentially even finding yourself some logbooks from him, would be a way to gain additional profit from it. Finally, we're going to have the exotic coinage itself. Whatever you do not sell your exotic coinage. Your exotic coinage is going to be used to reroll in Tujen shop. Tujen is going to be the vendor where you're going to be getting the majority of the profit from expedition. His shop is just filled with nothing but random currency and a few random gems. This random currency is going to be very plentiful, and it's going to be where you're going to get the majority of the supplies that you need to be able to reroll your maps and do whatever you need to do with your character. A lot of these are going to also be worth quite a lot of money at the start of a season, meaning that you could just sell your vols, your regrets, your fusings, and so on to other people to make additional profit. He's also going to to have Chaos Orbs in almost every single reroll that he has, with the ability for him to sometimes have quite a lot of chaos at once. In order to be able to buy this from him, you're gonna have to haggle with him. There's gonna be a slider at the bottom that you can use as a way to pitch a price to him, but if you do set too low of a price, he will just deny the sale and ban you from being able to purchase that item. What I highly recommend for you to do is to use your scroll wheel to move around the bar, as clicking this bar and dragging it around is going to get very tedious after a while, and to just give him an offer of somewhere around 60 to 70% of his asking price, and he'll either typically accept it or he'll force you to re-haggle with him within a smaller range where you just immediately hit confirm to get the rest of the offer. All you're gonna do on Tujen is just keep re-rolling, and you're just gonna stop and just buy whatever seems worth it to you. Typically, this would be any sort of Chaos Orbs and any sort of fusings and scours. Sometimes you'll also have 21, 23 gems, which might be worth a few divs on their own. And around every 100 rerolls or so, on average, you can expect to find a Divine Orb in his trade window. Sometimes you'll have more than one. You could potentially see 2 or 3 or 5 Divine Orbs at once. And the nice thing about his shop is it does not reset no matter what. The only way to change what is available in his shop is by to specifically use the reroll currency to get a new fresh shop. So if you don't have enough currency to be able to buy the Divine Orb immediately, you can just leave it sitting there until you go get a little bit more currency from doing some more expeditions until you can purchase it. Tujen is going to be your best friend, and he's going to throw you quite a lot of raw currency, so get used to just walking away with an inventory full of bubblegum currency from him after trading with him for maybe 10 or 20 minutes. And with all of that, that should be all the information that you need to be able to do this strategy. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so feel free to come by Twitch and ask me a question there. And I'll be doing the strategy myself for the first day or two of the season, so if you want to watch it for yourself, you're more than free to come and hang out with all the other cuties of my community and watch along. With all that said, I hope you cuties enjoy this video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next video.